Okay, welcome back to my Python tutorial. So, since we've already covered the print and return functions, we're going to do the function next. So, what exactly is the input function? The input function is a function that lets you input that lets you input that lets you input something into for the computer to use. Meaning it's like this. If you had something like, you can also put strings in the two parentheses in the input here. However, it technically it will print them out. However, they won't actually, it isn't like, so basically an input is like a print function. However, unlike the print function, the input function has the mechanics to return a value to the computer. So meaning if it was like this, say what is uh if you did something like that, then we're gonna save and then run the file. What is a jet plane? Then as you can see, there's something you can type here. There's nothing there though. So if you want to do something, it can't just be this. So first, to clean it up, we're going to add a new line character. A new line character looks like this. See? And drop down and then say once you've done that, you can play around with it. So for example, we can do this. This will print out the explanation. See? It just printed out the same thing I typed in. However, you can also assign an input function to a variable. A variable is basically a box. So for now, we're going to delete this, and then we're going to do something like this. My variable equals, then you can assign it to anything you want. For example, a floating point number. When I say floating point, it means a decimal because the decimal can float around places. So for example, and that's 5.0, then look what happens. Don't you notice that? The dot keeps moving. Instead of it used to be from here, but then it just went to here. Then you can print variables. Run it. See? Now, you can also overwrite a variable. So if, for example, what if you did something like this? Hold on. print hold on. Let's run it. Now that works. You get this and you get this. Also, one thing to clear up. The reason why there's this but there's nothing like this is because there's no number here, meaning that this 0 is unnecessary. So you could do that. See, it still works fine. Alright. I'm going to show you this in real-time action. First, we're going to do this. Def multi-equation. Print. Now, the reason why there's parentheses here, but it won't crash here, is because these parentheses is part of a string, not part of the actual function. Just so that's just a clear up. Alright. Then we're just going to do this. Minus 16. Then we're going to do multiply by 6 divided by 3. Then what we're going to do next is create a variable. So let's name this variable result. Assign it to this. Then we're just going to copy this here. Copy the whole thing, and then we do this. Whoops. Much better. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a try function. Now, this try function may seem pretty complex. However, it's actually just to do something. Basically, it's to run code that might fail. Otherwise, the whole thing would crash loudly and give you a big red traceback. So we're going to do this, do that. Answer equals int. Now this int function is a function that converts one thing into an integer. Then we're going to put our input here. Then what is the number? So I'm going to put a little comment here. The number and then we're going to put a new line character here. Then we're going to put an except here, meaning that if this code fails, then we jump straight down to except value error. Now, what is a value error? A value error is a specific type of error that's targeted to a wrong value or a value that cannot be converted. So, for example, what if I tried to make this into an integer? Meaning, if I try to make this into an integer, that won't work. And then it'll become a total, and then it'll become a total mess, because obviously you can't convert hello to be an integer. Audio error. Then we're gonna do our return here. Then we're gonna do our if statement. If answer equals result, return, hooray! Elif answer result return too high. Elif answer is less than result, then we return too low. Alright, all we gotta do is print out the function. Print multi equation. Don't forget to add the parentheses. Alright, that's it. Now let's test it. What is the number? So since we can just type, now let's test out our stuff. First we're going to test out this try. Let's try hello. See? It just gave this. Run it again. Then try this. Try floating point number. That's not a number. That's because I added this. However, that while decimals and whole numbers may seem in the same class, they're not actually in the same class. Look at how Python interprets this. See? Now let's trying something like this. 99, it's too high. 44, too low. What if it's 78? Hooray! Alright, that's it. I'll see you next video.